the internet is well and truly part of our lives. And like all parts of society, it's always evolving. As we'll see in a moment, for those who don't know, we are well embedded within what Web 2 is. And as all things are changing, Web 3 will come. So I think what I really wanted to get out of tonight is understanding that we all need to be part of this conversation, no matter what industry or interest we have in these ideas, because Web 3 will come. So if you're not part of the conversation, then you can't be part of what that might look like. So thank you so much to everyone for being here tonight. If you're a skeptic or a convert or something in between. And thank you so much to Tim from Zumo for joining us. We have here today Tim, a blockchain expert, CTO at Zumo, and the architect of the Zumo platform as well. Zumo is a cryptocurrency wallet that helps people buy, sell, and spend securely all over the world. So welcome, Tim. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, cool. So before we get into the Zumo story and a little bit more about the work that you do, I really wanted to quickly set the scene. So what was Web 1?
Web 1? Well, it was start of the internet as we know it. Mm-hmm. So effectively, it was copy of whatever already existed out in the world. It was like you got access to yellow pages, you got access to simple pages where you were kind of be able to search for information. It was more or less read-only system, very simplified. Of course, we are talking about kind of a period where internet connection wasn't in every home, and technology was a lot simpler, so simpler times.
And what about Web 2? Kind of give us a quick description of what Web 2 is and what we're living with right now.
Yeah, so as you said, we are currently in Web 2. One could argue that we are already transitioning towards Web 3. But Web 2 is the system we know right now. It is a system that went through from read-only to write and read. So effectively, users weren't passive observers anymore, but were able to participate and create things on internet. So outcome of that was were portals like MySpace, YouTube, Facebook, Google. It gave power to users.
I think the way I like hearing it described is that we're prosumers. We produce and we consume at the same time in Web 2. So coming from Web 2 into that transition, what is Web 3? What does it look like right now? What is it made out of?
Yeah, I mean, one important thing to note is that there aren't any kind of clear definitions. We are making things up as we go, effectively. Web 3 sounds pretty cool, so we can go with that. But it is a system that introduces another layer of complexity. So whatever already existed gets divided, gets upgraded. We are introducing AI, machine learning, and we are introducing something we'll be discussing in more details, blockchain and elements of decentralization. So it is exciting time, but we can't say that we are in Web 3. If I would have to guess, we will be in that kind of transition period for a while.
An exciting time for sure. So you touched on it before, the building blocks literally of what Web 3 might be and what we'll be talking about tonight. What is blockchain and why should we care?
Fair question. So in very simple term, blockchain is ledger. It's a notebook in which all the transactions are noted down. It is different in a way that it's decentralized, meaning that that ledger is copied over to multiple nodes, multiple computers, and all of them keep copy of that ledger. What that allows us to do is if something gets added to one book and it gets added to second book, those nodes can communicate and actually figure out who's lying. So the beauty of blockchain is that it always assumes that people lie, that systems don't work, and it tries to find out who's effectively guilty and reject that transaction or that node.
And what are some real-world benefits of blockchain that we can see right now?
Well, we are in a very early stage right now. I think that people are getting to grips with cryptocurrencies, which have been the main kind of blockchain-related functionality for the last few years. But what is happening on DeFi, what is happening with the whole financial system on blockchain has a potential to change the world. So I would say that the benefits can be felt by end users as well as companies that want to use the blockchain itself, because under the hood it's just technology, and you can leverage that technology for something cool and something useful, or for mining crypto kitties.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that mining. What is cryptocurrency, and how is it used within Zumo?
So, I mean, cryptocurrency by definition is virtual currency that's protected by some layer of cryptography. In our case, when we're talking about cryptocurrency, we're usually talking about Bitcoin or Ethereum. Essentially, it's a virtual currency that you can use, you can send, you can own, and you can make profit on it. That's what people have been doing for the last few years. What we're trying to do at Zumo is not to find that use case, because use cases already exist, but make everything a lot simpler and usable in a way where you don't need to be you don't need to have a PhD in engineering in order to own Bitcoin. And losing Bitcoin right now and losing cryptocurrencies is incredibly easy, because systems are complex, and that's at the core of what we're trying to do at Zumo.
And just before we jump into Zumo, you did touch on decentralization, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that, because I think that's one of the big exciting benefits to everything that we're talking about tonight, but also something that I think the exact meaning gets a little bit lost, definitely on me sometimes. So could you just describe exactly what that means in terms, as we're talking about Web3, crypto, blockchain?
I mean, in short, it's opposite of centralization. Kind of makes sense. But if we look at centralized system, let's say our banking system is very centralized, meaning that there's one entity, one organization that controls that part of system, and that entity can do whatever it wants to do with that system. When we introduce decentralization, we spread the responsibility amongst users of that network, amongst different nodes, meaning that there is no central entity who can control everything, and there is no central point of failure, which is potentially even more important.
Awesome, thank you for that. So moving on to Zumo, I really wanted to start with, what is the problem, and what are you doing at Zumo to fix that problem?
Yeah, so blockchain is hard. Blockchain is dangerous. Crypto is a very weird and wild world right now. It's incredibly easy to become victim of scam. It's incredibly easy to lose Bitcoin. What's funny is that it's incredibly hard to actually buy it. So what we are trying to do is make the whole process of participating in Web3 and blockchain a lot simpler and secure. So everything we kind of build has that simplicity and security in its core, and we are trying to transfer that simplicity and security to our users.
Why do you think people are, is that something do you think people are concerned about, that safety and security around crypto?
Of course, I mean, look, most of people still think that everything is one big Ponzi scheme. So that fear of security is something that is present. I mean, every week we hear, or every month we hear, that some exchange got hacked, something scary happened, and being part of that scary event can happen to anyone. So it is part of. I would say that education will be a big part of kind of resolving that issue. Technology is pretty new, pretty young, but it is on us to make everything simple and make sure that existing user base and kind of people that we are educating and we are addressing right now will effectively come to a system they can trust.
Brilliant. So in 2020, Zumo had a record-breaking seed funding round, and then 2021 was 100 times year-on-year growth. And then just recently, in the last couple of months, Zumo has announced some massive new names are joining the advisory team. I wanted to ask, what's next for Zumo? What are you guys working on at the moment?
A lot. So our roadmap is pretty full for this year. Our IP is in non-custodial wallets. That means that currencies are stored on chain itself, and that is something that we will keep in our core. But what we are doing is augmenting existing systems in a way where we are essentially building a system where users will be able to, within which users will be able to build their wealth. So we are adding yielding, we are adding free instant payments. We are planning to add cross-border payments. So there are a lot of different things that we are tackling right now. Of course, not everything at once, but our roadmap is more or less defined for the next year or two, and we will be busy.
Amazing. And really recently, but Zumo has had FCA authorization, and I think I wanted to touch on that because I think it's really interesting, this idea that people are worried about security. As you say, people might think it's just a big Ponzi scheme still, but this idea that it is backed up by a centralized authority, I think that's quite interesting. I was wondering what that means, what you think that means for crypto and Web3 as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of Web3 is that everybody can join, anyone can join. There is no, as we already said, central authority that says you can build on Web3, you cannot build on Web3. You can mine Bitcoin quite easily. But the reality is that I do believe that there is a bit of regulation that is required around any business. And Zumo was always very compliance-focused business. That is why everything we do is incredibly hard, because it's not just the tech that's hard, but regulation itself, which is hard. And regulation in space as new as crypto and blockchain is especially hard because nobody knows what they're doing. So you are trying to participate, trying to be compliant, but at the same time, there are no rules. But yeah, we were pushing for that stamp of approval, and that is effectively stamp of approval for us, and it gives us opportunity to within UK easily help to onboard other crypto companies to the ecosystem we have. So it's not just stamp of approval, but it's an asset.
Absolutely. And yeah, this idea that it's open to all, but you're still seeking that regulation. One of my questions around that was how do you think that interaction between regulation and openness, do you think that is a tool that we could use to level or begin to level the economic playing field?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it all starts with trust. You need to start building trust somewhere and somehow. The reality is that a project that is run by 4 unknown people somewhere in the room, a project that like has a market cap of few millions, can disappear overnight. And regulation can help here because you're forced to do everything by rules, and there is a level of oversight. What that also allows you, once you have that regulation is in place, to effectively, well, expand. In order to kind of level that playing field, you need to think big, and that's what we are trying to do.
Brilliant. And one thing that I did hear that you guys are working on is an NFT, non-fungible token marketplace. Just wanted to touch on that because I think that NFTs are really one of the most polarizing subjects within the world of Web3. I was wondering, firstly, how does that fit within a crypto company?
Well, NFTs in its core are just smart contracts. So it's a piece of programming. Like, it was never devised to be used for selling photos of monkeys. Like, that's not what NFT was devised for. So it's obviously because people are people, they like to do crazy stuff. We now have the whole NFT craze going on. Realistically, there is use case for NFTs. Obviously, what's happening right now is not it. But we aren't. We try not to be victim of hype itself. We look at usability, and we aren't looking at current kind of ecosystem, but what will come out of everything. So it's not that Zumo is trying to catch that NFT train. We won't have our own monkeys within app or our marketplace anytime soon. But it is a technology that could be useful, and we see a lot of potential in it.
What sort of uses do you see?
Well, I mean, so what are NFTs, right? Non-fungible meaning unique. So my sweater is fungible. It came in a container with 10,000 other pieces. I could get any of that pieces, and I would be happy with it because I would be able to see any difference. A painting, a painter paints is non-fungible. It's unique. There's one and only. So effectively, what NFTs allow us to do is create virtual assets that are unique and allow users to hold those assets. Now, what the actual use case is debatable. One pretty cool example of use cases would be art certificates with full traceability of ownership, which is something that is in art spheres. It is a big problem with fakes. It could be virtual tickets in order to prevent scalping. There could be kind of NFT integration with tickets where everything is more tightly controlled. So sky's the limit, effectively. What I do think is that the best use case is still out there, but I do believe that it will be found really soon.
Exciting. I think one of the most expensive NFTs went for $52.7 million, which just seems absolutely. It's hard to kind of wrap your head around it. But I think within that, and talking through some of these use cases and the fact that we haven't found the best use case, my question from that is, how do you think that NFTs and Web3 will change what we value?
It will change how we manage assets. I do believe that future is decentralized, and Web3 and blockchain will change how we buy things, how we store money, and how we manage our virtual and physical assets. And combination of blockchain and NFTs could just do that.
Cool. So moving on a little bit, I wanted to just talk for a few minutes around Zumo's environmental work, which I think is really interesting. Obviously, many businesses are committing to becoming carbon neutral within the next 10, 20 years or so. But in particular, I was interested in Zumo's Decarbonising Crypto report that was produced last year, which highlighted the carbon issue within crypto itself. And I wanted to ask, what's the problem, firstly? But also from that, what opportunities do you think that that crypto presents to decarbonising our economy?
Yeah, I mean, every system needs energy, spends energy. The reality is that crypto got a lot of heat when it comes to kind of how environmentally friendly it is, because it's very transparent. Bitcoin is an open network. You can actually measure things, you can see things, compared to traditional financial systems, for example, where everything is very hidden under countless layers of work and assets. Crypto it's an easy target, and media had pretty good fun doing just that, pinpointing, finger pointing. But in reality, it is a problem, right? If we just think about how Bitcoin even works, it is protected by energy. It was never designed to be efficient. Quite opposite. It's designed to be inefficient because that protects it. You need to put energy in, and that gives it kind of the protection, decentralization it has. Now, obviously, when everything scales, that is not scalable. And we have seen that costs for individual transactions, for example, skyrocketed in the last couple of years. Fees are becoming unmanageable. And that's why new blockchains are coming out that are a lot more efficient. But we at Zumo saw that this is a problem that's not going away. Of course, we have kind of modified how we are making our decisions. We now have like a new lens through which we look at new technologies. But at the same time, we wanted to do something. And we already done 3 things this year. So the report you mentioned was a pretty great accomplishment. It was incredibly complex to even prepare that, just because there aren't a lot of sources where you can get information from. Like you have 2 polar opposites. You have media that says this is going to kill us all, and then you have people that don't care, and you have them fighting, and then you need to find the right information. But we managed to prepare effectively a formula which allows us to properly offset any carbon footprint for individual Bitcoin that is held within our system. We already had pilot project run, where for a specific period we were effectively offsetting Bitcoins that our users bought. And we have stated that we are aiming to be carbon neutral, at least when it comes to crypto, by 2030, which is a pretty big step, and it is something that we are constantly working on. But at the same time, we need to acknowledge the fact that things change, and crypto and blockchain spaces are moving incredibly fast right now. So who knows what will happen in 2 years?
Absolutely. Cool. Thank you. Yeah, very detailed answer. So thanks for that.
I was pretty involved in the whole thing.
So Zumo, I was very impressed with a lot of the research I was doing and interviews I was listening to, has a very strong people-first values at their core. So I really wanted to talk about the impact of Web3 on people. So just to kind of recap, Web 1 really revolutionized how we access information, and Web 2 has revolutionized how we interact with and produce our own content. So what does Web 3 mean for how we as individuals might get our information in the future?
Yeah, I mean, one pretty bad side effect of Web 2 was, well, it gave us Facebook, YouTube, Google, that's all fine. But we have become the product. Facebook is free because, well, we are the product. You're paying for it. You don't even know. You are being served ads. You are being tracked. Your data is being sold to other companies. I think that Web3 gives us opportunity to take back control of that, to shift from broken system that's currently in place, the broken ad system that's currently in place, to take some of the power that currently bigger players have in not only how they monetize our data, but also how then they decide to split that profits, right? It's how content creators are being awarded and who decides how much they get. I think that Web3 has a potential to address all these things and actually kind of put us back to where we were before all the let's give out our data for free craze started happening.
So you see through that custodial nature of holding on to our own data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's already happening with Bitcoin. You're not dependent on banks anymore. It's yours, right? If you have your private keys, nobody can prevent you managing transactions, sending transactions to your family. That's it. You're in control. And data managing virtual identity is the next stage.
So you touched on a little bit, around the current concerns that we have with the web, misinformation, fake news, of course, and silos. And one thing I've been looking into quite a lot is reduced social capital for each individual person. And I guess you kind of touched on it a little bit before, but was hoping to kind of dig into how Web3 could offer some solutions to those concerns. Is there some way that Web3 can help cut through misinformation, make sure that we know what we're looking at and where the sources are?
Yeah, I mean, it can definitely make sure that kind of the echo chamber we are usually caught in is removed, or at least minimized. It can make sure that false information cannot be spread. It can help us reestablish a system that's broken, a system that's ad-driven, a system that isn't intent on serving us real information, but is intent on serving us information that is fun to us, that will keep us on page as long as it can. And there are projects that are already happening, projects that kind of focus on data verification, decentralized data verification, outsourcing data verification to people, individual people. And it is something that it's not a quick fix. I don't think that it'll happen overnight. It's again going to be a transition period, but somebody needs to start it. Absolutely.
One of my last questions for you tonight is, we live in a society where we're intertwined with tech, literally. I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is check my phone, and the same at the end of the night as well. So, whether we're talking about a cashless society or the metaverse, we're so connected with technology now. Isn't Web3 simply kind of pulling us further into this mediatization of our lives?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, we are already pretty strongly intertwined with technology, and not in a positive way. It is something that, like, I'm tech head by nature. I love tech. Like, I love to own latest tech. I love my toys. But at the same time, that is a problem. I would be lying if I would say that that's not a problem. But what Web3 can do is help us pull things back in regather control. I'm not talking about metaverse that Facebook wants to push, because that's quite an opposite of what we truly want to do. But there are opportunities. We just need to make sure that steps we are taking are steps in the right direction.
And how can we make sure that people from all walks of life, you know, whatever industry, place in the world you come from, can have a say in what this Web3 that we've been talking about, what that will look like?
Education and time. Education is something that we are incredibly passionate about at Zumo. Our whole, everything that we build is built with kind of usability in its core. But at the same time, we acknowledge the fact that sometimes new technology needs to be relearned, or at least it needs to be properly introduced. One thing we currently do in our app is we ask user what his crypto knowledge is, and based on that, we guide him through what's going to happen, why this is important, how to keep his private key safe, what does it even mean, how transactions work. And it is something that we are aiming to do on a larger scale. I think that education needs to be very inclusive. Effectively, we need to make sure that education isn't driven by 1% club, Facebooks of the world, but is designed with simplicity, usability, and is inclusive enough that allows anyone to join. My father owns Bitcoin because of Zumo, and he's not that heavy, believe me, but he managed to get through. And it is goal that I always have when we are thinking about something new that we are building. Our product team, which is amazing, thinks about new features. The question I ask myself is always, will I get calls from my father when he gets the latest version of the app?
Nice. So my final question before I hand over for a Q&A, what the fuck is Web3?
It's an opportunity to reshape not just internet, but technology we know and use. It's an opportunity to regain control we have lost in the last decades, and to kind of opportunity to put mankind back on the right track.
With that, we'll end it there. Thank you so much, Tim. Big round of applause for Tim. Thank you. I'll leave you to. No, you can't have. Yeah, you might need that one. I think this is for the streaming. That one.
Need the big one, Nick.
Okay, the big microphone. Hello. I'm Nick. I'm not the Nick that should have been here.
You got a better deal.
We got a better deal. That was cool. So I've been monitoring the Slido tonight, Tim, and we've still got a few questions from our audience, if that's okay.
Okay.
You got a minute? A lot of the questions are still based around the question, why should I care about Web3? Here's one that says, straight up, hey, I'm old and busy. In simple terms, why should I care about Web3? How could it affect my daily life?
Old and busy. That's a nice combination.
It was me.
I would say that everyone needs to be part of the conversation, because it's not just about them, it's also about the world that they will leave behind for their grandkids, kids. And not being part of that discussion could be problematic.
Okay, so this is something which is happening, and it's either a wave that you ride or something that you get washed up in the wake, maybe.
I don't think so. I mean, realistically, Web3 is, and the whole concept of blockchain, Web3, everything is incredibly young, right? So internet was made public or made popular in 1990. So it had quite a while to catch on. We are in infancy stage, in the start of everything just now. Even if you don't want to be part of Web3, you will be.
Terrifying and real. What would you say your 2 or 3 key counterpoints or arguments when people come to you speaking as a complete Web3 skeptic at the moment?
Well, I mean, people don't like change. They don't like new things. They don't like to learn. And fear is incredibly powerful emotion. Fear of change, fear of losing money, fear of not wanting to even be part of that discussion can drive people in the wrong direction. So I would say just calm down, take it easy. It'll all come to you in your own time.
So this question actually piggybacks on that. Do you see parallels between the rise in popularity of Web3 and the dot-com bubble stroke crash of the early 2000s? And if so, what pitfalls should we look to avoid?
I think we already had something similar. So for people that are more kind of in the whole space, there was a pretty strong ICO craze, effectively an IPO type of thing of blockchain and Web3 world. People were gathering incredible amounts of money for projects that were never delivered, that they didn't even have kind of intention of delivering. And that bubble did burst. It slowed down everything. It stopped. And I do think that it's a natural cycle, but what we need to do is embrace failures and learnings and push forward.
I agree. As someone that's been around the game for a while and has now been part of this fast-growing company, is there anything about this space that worries you that you can share in front of this 100 or so people happily?
Well, we have discussed the importance of regulation. I think that that is something we will need to embrace. At the same time, realistically, what worries me most is the velocity at which everything is changing and our ability to keep up with changes. I think it is vital. If you don't want to become MySpace version 2, you need to keep up with what's happening outside, and for that, you need to have an amazing team. You need to have proper vision, and that is something that I am actively focusing on. So, as we are talking about team, if anyone knows anyone who would want to join our team, we are constantly on a search for new talent, and realistically, I think that is the biggest problem, finding that those innovators who will be able to take what you have already built and push it to the next level.
Are you hiring for software engineers by any chance?
Yeah.
Always. Every tech company should just have, we're hiring software engineers as like their URL, maybe.
That's it.
So piggybacking on that, we've got a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of innovators, a lot of ideas, people in the audience. Alan asks, what are some of the unusual and still untapped use cases for blockchain that perhaps people aren't properly working on at the moment?
Properly working on it. There's a lot of stuff that.
I spiced it up a little bit.
No, there's a lot of things that are being half-assed. Obviously, that goes against everything we at Zumo stand for. I would say that there's always an opportunity to do something better. Like we have built a product, but we are trying to make it better. And I think that is something that kind of can be applied to the whole space. I'm sure that there are already use cases and applications that kind of do something, but it can be done better.
It's always growth for space for growth. So, right, let's say that someone in the audience now is like, cool, Tim has done a great job of demystifying the space. I'm in. What, with the recent kind of scams that have been going around where millions of NFTs were lost, what can we do as a marketplace, as an ecosystem to assure new adopters that this market is safe?
It's education and providing everyone tools to do things safely. One thing that, like, in majority of, this might be tech heavy, but in majority of cases when we are talking about assets being lost, NFTs being hacked, the reality is that people who have lost that never truly even owned it. And that is something that we push towards. Our solution is focused on users actually owning it instead of us owning it and giving you, I owe you, piece of paper, which, well, bad stuff happens afterwards. No, but it is. You need to find a product that you trust, a product that is verified, potentially a product that has nice adoption, has gone through compliance hoops, has done the work it needed to do in order to get that, and avoid get rich quick schemes and easy money, because there's no easy money.
And that's a sage message to our audience that are in business and in entrepreneurship. There's always has to be work. So Tim, final question from us tonight. I'll ask Carol to grab your gift. What's next for yourself and for Zumo? What's the next big goal after everything this last year has brought you?
Growth, becoming #1 crypto provider, DeFi provider, and not just UK, Europe. We are growing into Europe this year. It's going to be a wild ride, and it is something for which we have been preparing for a while now. So it's exciting.
Well, listen, all power to you. I hope people in the audience have got what we're getting at. If not, there's still time to talk about it, to challenge. I know there's some people in the audience I've spoken to tonight that are far, far ahead in terms of trading different bits. Anna, please join us and give this gentleman his gift. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank Tim Sabanov from Zumo for giving us his time and on short notice to help us to find out what the fuck is Web3. Yeah.